And Melody Isis Herman, right there, she was my predecessor, so she has been one to carry on the 1 Million Cups over the past 9 years. So today we celebrate 9 years of 1 Million Cups in Asheville. So without further ado, I would like to welcome to the stage Cameron Cushman.
All right. Thanks for having me, everybody. No one is more surprised than me that 1 Million Cups even still exists. This was a silly little idea that turned into a thing, and it is solely due to the fact, well, it's due to two things. One is the Kaufman Foundation, which I'll talk about in a second, and two, it's the people that are in this room that Erica just mentioned, volunteers across the country who love their startup community so much that they put out time, effort, sometimes money out of their own pockets. They do this because they love entrepreneurs, they love their communities, and they want to help them thrive and succeed in ways that maybe they haven't succeeded before. And that is the secret sauce of what I've done. So, what they asked me to do today was share a little bit about me and then a little bit about the origin story of Million Cups. And I think we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A at the end, so be thinking of crazy questions. No question is too crazy for me. Just to be clear, I'm just a guy. I don't work for the Kaufman Foundation anymore. I just have stayed involved and engaged in 1 Million Cups. I am a volunteer organizer in my hometown of Fort Worth, Texas. With today, shout out, they are launching the second Spanish language 1 Million Cups. Or as we call it, 1 Million de Casas. And so that is actually really cool experience of 1 Million Cups. There are so many people who have great ideas and maybe they're able to share in English to talk their language, or maybe they're just concerned about all kinds of things. It might be Spanish. So that's kind of what we're testing out, which I think is going to be super cool. Now, first, before I begin, one of the things that we always like to do at 1 Million Cups is to check in. So if you guys would scan this QR code, you'll see it again at the end. It's a real quick check-in, and we'll work on that later. But so let me briefly a little bit about the Kaufman Foundation. So the Kaufman Foundation was started by Ewing Mary Kaufman, who was born and raised literally started my career in the mailroom of the White House. This was the George W. Bush administration. I was a Texan. I was a political science major who didn't want to go to law school. So I moved to Washington, D.C., and it took a little bit, but I literally started in the mailroom of the White House, the Office of Presidential Correspondence. No, it looks nothing like ELF. The mail is all sorted in a separate facility that none of us ever went to. It was like super top secret. I didn't even know where it was. It had a code name. I have no idea. But I did have to deal with a little bit of the anthrax mail, if you remember that. So that was not good. I was not personally affected, but if you want to know more about that, I can tell you more about that. Anyway, I finished out the Bush administration and ended up at the Commerce Department doing trade policy of all things, which is a fascinating time for trade policy right now. Like, don't get me started on that. But the Commerce Department had a joint project with the Kauffman Foundation kind of on the table. And my boss at the time, who was a really early internet entrepreneur, he was one of the first people to sell cars on the internet, he was one of the first people to sell jewelry on the internet, said, hey, we have this foundation in Kansas City, and we have this latent project we'd like for you to try to work on, so go figure this out. So we started this thing called the Program for Entrepreneurial Growth, and we did entrepreneurship programming in the BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, to try to share the secret sauce of American entrepreneurship. And it was a fascinating project, and then that led me to a job at the Kauffman Foundation. So in 2008, I moved to Kansas City and took a job as the chief of staff to the president and CEO, got to see the organization from a very interesting perspective, from dealing with the board to dealing with top leadership to understanding grant-making strategy and things like that. It was fascinating. Did a little bit of work on research and policy in between. Kauffman, during a 10-year time frame, they funded about $100 million in economic research, all focused on this question of the role that entrepreneurship plays in our economy. We just didn't understand it. Get a PhD in entrepreneurship. Activity. My last job was to build the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Kansas City. But we didn't really call it that. It was like, hey, how do we help local entrepreneurs? And we had no idea what we were doing. So I moved over to the entrepreneurship team, which was always the cool team at the Kauffman Foundation. And I hired my former intern, a guy named Nate Olson, and we embarked on this journey to start 1 Million Cups, which we didn't even really have a name or anything for it. So you guys are all familiar with what 1 Million Cups is. You wouldn't be here if you weren't, so I'll kind of skip over this. But here's how it started. We were assigned to build the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Kansas City, and we really had no idea what that meant. We had, starting with a very basic problem, which was we didn't even know the entrepreneurs and the companies that were operating in our own backyard. Here we were, the foundation of entrepreneurship that you used to hear on NPR, and it had this amazing brand. And I looked at Nate one day and I said, Nate, how many local startups can you name? He couldn't get off one hand. And I said, I can't either. And then some of those were actually the same ones that we knew together. So it was even worse of a problem. So here I am in the ivory tower. I've been there 4 or 5 years at this point. We are the foundation of entrepreneurship, and I didn't know any entrepreneurs that were operating in our own backyard. That was a problem. And that was one of the problems that we decided to try to solve with 1 Million Cups. But we didn't have a name for it or anything. We just said, well, what if we took 2 of those and we invited them in for coffee? Would they come to the Kauffman Foundation, this paragon of entrepreneurship, this incredible building and this beautiful foundation, and just share their story with us? Would they just tell us what they're working on? So we called them, the two of the 4 or 5 that we knew. We invited them in. We brought coffee, and it was like pulling teeth to get some of our own colleagues to show up. We had 12 people on that first day, and those 2 entrepreneurs get up. We had, hey, show some slides, whatever you want to do. We give them almost no guidance, and they presented, and they loved it. And our Kauffman associates loved it too, because then they got to learn about some of the entrepreneurs and innovators that were operating right in their own backyard as well. So afterwards, we're like, well, that was cool. What did you guys think? So the 2 presenters came up to us and said, this was really awesome. Can I come back next week? Next week? Are we having it next week? Nate, what do you think? And so we said, sure, yeah, why not? How about the same time, same place, we'll do it. And we had a couple other people we'd already been talking to. And then what happened is the next week, they came back, the previous presenters, they brought a friend, and then they recommended her. And that's how it started. It was a super simple idea. All we were doing was trying to solve our own problem, which was we didn't know the local entrepreneurs that were operating in our own community, and we wanted to solve that. So we set out to do this. We created it Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and there's a whole backstory to that we can go into if you guys want to know more about that, about why it's at this specific time, which the real answer is because there's not much else going on at this time, and that's why you do it at this time. It started to grow in Kansas City. We got to the point where we had to move not from a small room to a medium-sized room to the biggest room at the Kauffman Foundation. Erica and Sean were in that last week. We were literally having 150 to 200 people every week. And we were buying the coffee for everybody. So at one point, the event planner comes over and she says, Cameron, did you know that you're spending $10,000 on coffee per month?
I said, no, I didn't know that. But we're the foundation of entrepreneurship that has a $2 billion corpus. I think spending $10,000 to bring local entrepreneurs into our foundation is totally okay. And she looked at me and she was like, yep, can't argue with that. And that was it. So we had no intent of scaling this thing. We really didn't know what we had. And all of a sudden, about 6 to 9 months in, a guy from Des Moines shows up, a guy named Adam, and he says, hey, this is really cool. I'd heard about this in Kansas City and I wanted to come see it for myself. Can I bring this to Des Moines? Huh? What? It didn't have a name at that point. We didn't have anything that was really substantive. And he said, yeah, I have a buddy who has a coffee shop. I think I could run in his coffee shop. Can I just take this to Des Moines? Well, let us think about it. Sure, we'll be in touch. And a few months later, we sent Nate to Des Moines, and Des Moines launched. So Des Moines was the second city. Now it's in over 100 U.S. cities. It's been as high as 150, 160 before. It's also gone international. Nobody, myself, first in line in that list, thought it would have the staying power that it absolutely did. So that's a little bit of the origin story of 1 Million Cups. Now, why do we call it 1 Million Cups? It's because we actually read a blog post by someone talking about how you build a community of anything. And I think this guy was a cycling enthusiast, or there was an enthusiast or something. He said, the way to build a community of anything is you got to drink 1 million cups of coffee with your local community. And we thought that was pretty powerful. And we said, well, what if we just called this whole thing 1 Million Cups? Because if we could drink 1 million cups of coffee with our local entrepreneurs, would that fundamentally change the way that our city and our community thought about entrepreneurship? And at the summit, we kind of did some loose math, and I think we actually got to 1 million, which was just like, huh? Like, this is nuts. Like, it's crazy. So now I want to jump into some of the other parts of like the overarching reason why 1 Million Cups is so important. And I've already mentioned some of this. Let's see, did I miss one there? All right, well, if we could drink 1 million cups of coffee with our local entrepreneurs, then it would fundamentally change the way that we thought about entrepreneurship. And that's not just for the entrepreneurs. That's also for your local politicians, your corporate leaders, other people in the community, your children who see that there's a vibrant entrepreneurial community, and they know that that is an option for them as they come up and live in your town. And that was such a fundamental truth for us. There we go. There we go. So yeah, so it came on to have a national and a local mission, of course. You guys do it here locally, but you are one of 103 around the country that are all meeting on a Wednesday at 9 a.m. local time doing the exact same thing that you guys do. And we love that. I mean, just think about the people that are being impacted by this program right now. And same time, same bat place next week, right? In cities all across the country. It's really amazing. Kinsey, how many locations are in this just in the Southeast? So this that I think makes 1 million cups think about is that starting a company is one of the hardest things that most people will do in their entire lives. It's difficult. You don't know what you don't know. You're operating in total uncertainty, and yet it is vital to our economic future for job creation, for wealth creation, for innovation, for all the things that we continue to have a vibrant entrepreneurial community. And if there's a way that we, the community, can kind of wrap our arms around those people and show them that we can help you, we can connect you, we can help you fill in those gaps of the things that you know you don't know, then the thesis is that we will all be more fundamentally individual entrepreneur level, but also at a corporate level, which is a community-wide level of entrepreneurship. So think about giving entrepreneurs a big giant bear hug, offering them a cup of coffee. You showing up every week does that too. Does that for the person that's presenting. Help them, engage. It will not return void, and it will absolutely help grow your community. This was another fundamental thing that we had. I mean, we were solving our own problem. And this is a huge problem across the country for politicians, chambers, anybody who deals with the corporate sector, is they don't even know who the entrepreneurs are that are operating in their own local ecosystem. Then guess what? You will not know how to help them because you don't know what they need. You don't know what they lack. You don't know what educational resources you could provide. You don't know what kind of capital they're trying to raise. Hear their story. Understand what they're doing. If you don't know who they are, you can't help them. One of the best ways to find out who those local entrepreneurs are is to come to 1 Million Cups. and to share your story. Be a presenter. Another thing I always tell people, there's 19 in Kinsey's region. Drive to the next 1 Million Cups. Go present. Use 1 Million Cups as your go-to-market strategy. Why wouldn't you want to get in front of as many people? Now, not every business works that way. If you're running a coffee shop, people aren't going to drive an hour to come to your coffee shop probably. But if you got any kind of a product, any kind of a service, use 1 Million Cups as your go-to-market strategy. Come to Fort Worth. We'd love to have you. I think in today's uncertain times, another piece of what the impact that 1 Million Cups has had is that rallying your community around entrepreneurship. We think about that, not only in an innovation sense, like you're bringing a new product and service to market, but in a connectedness sense, in a networked sense, in a how can we band together to help solve whatever problems our community is facing. Is it a hurt that's going on? 1 Million Cups can be the change in your community that you want to see. So use this convening mechanism, use the network that you're building, the connections that you're building here to affect positive change in your community. At the local level, at the state level, and even potentially at the national level. I mean, 1 Million Cups is now, it could probably have an impact at the national level. Key pillars, you guys know all this. This is just review, presentations, not pitches. We want you to make connections, get to know each other. This is not just about networking. It's for the community. These are your local volunteers putting this on for you every week. If you haven't volunteered as an organizer, please jump in and volunteer. Figure out how you can help. Raise your hand. Bake cookies. There's home-baked cookies over there. That's incredible. I love it. That's right. And we have to celebrate 9 years, which is super awesome. All right, this is one of the last points I'm going to make. So my kids have really gotten into Shark Tank. Everybody's seen Shark Tank, right? The entrepreneur gets up, they go in front of the sharks, it's really uncertain. Sometimes the sharks just totally tear them down. Sometimes they want to invest. I mean, you've all seen the show, right? But it's good TV because it's drama, right? We're going to tear this entrepreneur down. We're going to tear this guy's idea down. The first time I ever presented 1 Million Cups, I finished my pitch. I'm feeling great. My presentation is done. And the guy in the back of the room, who I knew, he said, "That's the dumbest idea I've ever heard." Just heartbreaking. And then the guy next to me says, "No, it's not, and I'll tell you why." And then these two start getting into it about my business that I just presented. But how did that make me feel as an entrepreneur? Did I want to tell that story? No. It was shocking, right? And that's what a Shark Tank is. But that's not what we have here at 1 Million Cups. 1 Million Cups is more like a dolphin tank because it's friendly. So we want not a Shark Tank. All right? There we go. Yeah, I like it. All right, and you guys know this. All right, so that's the end of the 1 Million Cups origin story. I'm happy. It's just so we can know what the attendance was today and know that you were here. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Erica. Or do you just want me to take questions from the audience?
Okay, we have a question. Hi, I'm curious what you're doing now.
Great question. So I spent the last 7.5 years at a university working in innovation and entrepreneurship. I was building the local biotech innovation ecosystem in Fort Worth. And due to a university scandal, leadership change, Trump budget cuts, I was laid off in May. And so I have now started my own company. It's called Red Sage Innovation. And I am trying to do this kind of work for universities, corporations, people who want to innovate and build on. I have a really weird resume, so going to work in the corporate world doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Nobody will hire me. But I also have this really weird set of training around how you build entrepreneurial ecosystems that I'm trying to leverage. So that's what I'm doing. So redsageinnovation.com if anybody's curious. And I just wrapped up my first consulting gig last week, which was fun.
So, one of the things that tends to be a question for Q&A for 1 Million Cups is, okay, so what's your next step? What's the next stage? What do you see for the future of 1 Million Cups? And so, where do you see it going now?
Okay, so I'll answer that in two ways, because one thing that we also didn't realize when we started this was the question that kept popping up every week was, what can we, the 1 Million Cups community, do for you? And it was always said a little bit differently. And we heard it enough at the end of everybody's presentation. We said, maybe we should just like bake that into the model. Because you can go through someone's entire presentation and not really understand how to help them. So I was like, well, let's just be real intentional. Let's just end all the presentations that way. And you'll probably do a version of that here, or it comes up naturally. You know, every chapter is a little bit different, which is the beauty of it. But the idea is that it's all relatively the same as well. So that's one thing I would say is that baking in that question, I think, really helps with the future of entrepreneurship in your city and for that entrepreneur. Where do I see the future of it going? That's an interesting question because it's almost 15 years old now. It survived a pandemic. It survived, economic shocks, presidential elections. I mean, it survived all kinds of things because entrepreneurs care, and they are the ones that are putting in the hard work. There was a time where Kaufman said they wanted to get to 500 cities. That was a little ambitious. I don't think there's 500 cities in the U.S. that could really sustain the 1 million cups. I would much rather have quality locations like this than quantity, right? 1 million cups does not tend to work as well in really large cities. Some cities are certainly an exception. Like I found out in July, there's one in New York City. There's one in Manhattan. What? That's nuts. How does that work? We tried early on to get one in Silicon Valley. It was really hard. You know why? Because Silicon Valley doesn't need 1 million cups. Des Moines needs 1 million cups. Asheville needs 1 million cups. It tends to work really well in these kind of medium-sized cities. So quality over quantity is what I would say. And then also just where are the other cities that we can get to that maybe aren't have 1 million cups yet, or can you test one metro area? So this is the other thing that I've been doing in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So I got the Fort Worth and Dallas one started when I left Kaufman in 2013. I helped the Fort Worth one and the Dallas one get started. So we had two in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex is now 8 million people. Like that's nuts. That's a ton of people. That's my hometown. It's crazy. It's blown up. But we have one in Northeast Tarrant County, Arlington, Fort Worth, Dallas, Frisco, Plano, Irving. I'm trying to start one in Denton. So like there could be 8 or 10 1 million cups operating in the same metro area. And that I think is untapped resources because I don't want to drive to Frisco because even though it's in the same city, it's pulling my hair out. Plus it's like I'm going to Oklahoma and it's like I've even left civilization, It's nuts. Atlanta at one point I think had 4 or 5. If New York City New York City could have 20, if you think about the 5 boroughs and all that. The other thing I didn't mention too, when you talk about what's next, there is a separate group that has started, it's the same model, but it's run through the Global Entrepreneurship Congress, the Global Entrepreneurship Network, the guys that put on Global Entrepreneurship Week, which is in November. Startup Huddle, and last I heard it's in about 60 international cities. And I've been on some of those calls with these entrepreneurs in other countries that want to launch Startup Huddle, 1 Million Cups International, and it's fascinating. Like there is I don't know if it still exists, but I talked to him at one point. There is a Startup Huddle in Baghdad. Like think about that for a minute. Like that's a country that's been at war for a long time that we invaded on a couple of different occasions, and now they have a 1 Million Cups. And it is just really fascinating. And it's in like a place like this, like a co-working space, an incubator kind of place. And so I just have no concept of how this. And I'll give you another example of this. One thing, and my ideas are free here, so here you go. One year for Global Entrepreneurship Week, we in Fort Worth partnered up with the Startup Huddle in Islamabad, and we did a virtual pitch with Islamabad, and it was super cool. So we started, and our entrepreneur presented via, it wasn't even anything fancy like you guys are doing here, and they watched and asked questions, and then we flipped it. So then we watched the entrepreneur in Islamabad present to us, and then we asked them questions. And it was the strangest thing, too, because the guy that we already had slated for that week was, like, from Pakistan. And so I was like, yeah, I didn't grow up in Islamabad, but I know so-and-so. And he was like, what? This is nuts. So, like, I don't know if y'all have noticed, but distance is dead. So, like, you can connect with any 1 Million Cups or start a huddle around the world if you want to. So, bargain for it. Yes.
Hey, Cameron.
Yes.
Glad you're here. Thanks for the presentation. The question that I've got is around 1 Million Cups as a great ecosystem of the beginning side or the early stages for business. There seems like there's a missed opportunity in tracking or finding out when a company exits or when a company closes. Why? What's the arc? Has there been any thought from the Kaufman Foundation about tracking and
So yes, and full disclosure, I do not work for the Kauffman Foundation anymore. I used to, and I love Kauffman. They have struggled with that problem, I would say. And I don't know all the ins and outs because I've been kind of involved. I've been running my own community, right? I'm not worried about what they're doing at the national level. But yes, I think it's a huge missed opportunity. What is the impact that 1 Million Cups has had across the board and on so many different metrics? Job creation. Did you go out of business? How many companies actually got started because of it? How many people got jobs in the companies that presented? I mean, there's so many different ways you could track it. And they've done some of that, and I think some of that is probably on the website somewhere. But it's a great question. What I love too are just like the individual stories. So there's a guy in our ecosystem, a guy named Dimitri King, and just great dude. He's a coder developer type, was kind of building this thing on the side, but didn't really plug into the local ecosystem at all. And I met him somewhere, and I was like, hey, you should come to this thing called 1 Million Cups. And sure enough, he shows up. And it opened up this entire ecosystem for him that he had no idea existed. Resources, people, funding, you name it. But he didn't know how to like plug into the first node. And if you don't know how to plug into the first node, then you can't access the entire network. And that's a really hard thing to track. But if you're Dimitri King, that is a game changer for your business.
Good morning, my name is Peter, and again, thank you. I'd like to get your reaction to advice I've given to entrepreneurs via SCORE and other places. And that is, I say, call someone in your line of work, your type of business, but way outside of your market area, and say, what would you do if you were starting over? What would you do? What was successful? What would you say was not worth trying?
Absolutely, and I said this already. Entrepreneurs don't know what they don't know, and you just need someone to tell you. I mean, even if you don't know how to solve any of the problems, you at least need to know what the problems are that you're going to encounter. And I think when you start from scratch, you have no idea. I was talking with my friend Paula back here, and she was saying that when she started her business, she didn't know she had to pay quarterly taxes. Right? Was it quarterly taxes? I was like, yeah, that's kind of an important thing. And if you don't do that, you're going to go to jail or you're going to have to pay a huge fine. But no one shows up at your door and says, oh, you just filed an LLC, you just started a company, now you have to pay quarterly taxes. It's like it's not a thing. But this is where the community can be absolutely super helpful in that. Solving the problems is a different matter because I think that's where sometimes mentors' advice can be conflicting, it can be confusing. But if you don't even know what you're doing to start, then that could be an issue. I'll give you a kind of a weird example too. I've done a lot of local policy work on how to make it faster, cheaper, and easier to start a business because governments come in and they put all kinds of fees and requirements and steps, and some are virtual and some are in person. You got to deal with the health department, you got to deal with the fire department, you got to deal with the water department. It's kind of ridiculous. But most entrepreneurs, they don't know any of it. Feel like the process changes depending on how they go through it. Well, the process shouldn't change, but there is no map to show you what the process is. So like if I'm opening a restaurant, the process should be the same every time, right? And by the way, at step 17, I should ask the question, do I need a grease trap? And I've spent way more time in my career on grease trap policy than I care to admit. True story. But if you don't get it at step 17 and you're at step 30 and you're about to open your business and you're filing your certificate of occupancy form and the inspector shows up and says, where's your grease trap? You're running a Mexican food restaurant. You have to have a grease trap. $15,000, $20,000, maybe $30,000 that you have to get hit. You don't have a grease trap guy set up. You got to dig up the concrete in front of your brand new restaurant. And guess what? You don't open for another month or 2 or 3. And every time you don't open, that costs you money. So it wasn't that you didn't want to put a grease trap in. It wasn't that you're trying to get around the regulations. It's that you didn't understand the rules of the game. And so just understanding the rules of the game is super important. In the back. Oh. I get excited about this in case you can't tell.
I am a little obsessed with the amount of noise and the voices that we're all supposed to all the time, and being able to discern intelligence from wisdom. And so I wonder if you have any guidance for entrepreneurs, like how do you identify smart people.
Yeah.
Because having a successful business is different than having a satisfying life and a meaningful life. So, like, just if there's any guidance you have.
Yeah, I wish I had like the magic answer for you. It's really tough because one of the things we did in Fort Worth, we launched. Am I familiar with Techstars? We launched the world's first physical health focused Techstars accelerator, and it was really trying to revolutionize physical therapy because we half of all Americans over the age of 18 will see a physical therapist this year, like half. That's nuts, and nobody realizes that. And you hear about cancer and Alzheimer's and AIDS and all these diseases, and those are terrible things, and we should absolutely fund those and try to figure them out. But what we really go to the doctor for is bumps and strains and shoulders and knees. But the Techstars model for these companies is you bring in almost as many mentors as you can handle. And they kind of go down to like, you sort of bring in all these mentors, and then you kind of get a lead mentor and you get a couple other mentors. But the problem is these are really smart people, and they're probably in that field, but they're all going to have a little bit of a different perspective. And so to try to discern who's the wisdom you want to follow is tricky. And there is no real answer for that. The one thing that I would say, though, is that you have to make sure that you're building the company that you ultimately want to build. Because some of these mentors, some of these cashed out entrepreneurs, they're going to tell you the crazy stuff that they did. But that doesn't mean that you have to follow their crazy path. And that doesn't mean that that's the path that is best for you and your mental health and your physical health and your relationship with your family and things like that. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's the best path for you. How do you discern which is which? That's a really hard problem. But I'll go back to something Brad Feld likes to talk about, if any of you guys are Brad Feld fans. He talks about running these like small little experiments, right? So maybe you take two things, right? There's an A option and a B option. I'm not sure which one. Is there a minimum way you can kind of test it and see what the market tells you? See what your first customer tells you. Can you kind of test those ideas and actually test out the mentor's advice to see if they're right? Without spending a ton of money, without putting the entire company on the line, without burning down your house or anything like that, is there a way you can run a small experiment to test that and then learn from it and then go on to the next experiment?
All right, last question, and then we're going to wrap up with the birthday.
We're in a very precarious time politically.
I hadn't noticed.
So my question is, any advice to how entrepreneurs can ride this tsunami of constant change on tariffs and policy of people?
Oh, I knew somebody was going to ask me about trade policy. This is a hard one because we absolutely need to do it. And we as entrepreneurs need to come together and say, like, that's wrong. That's ruining our businesses. It's ruining our communities. It's ruining our supply chains. It's ruining our ability to serve our customers. We've got to stand up. There we go. And it's not just the tariffs. It's just the uncertainty about everything, from interest rates to, you name it. It's all just so uncertain. And the stock markets and business owners, the number one thing they hate is uncertainty. And that's what has been created. It's just uncertainty. We just don't know. And if you're shipping stuff from Mexico, it might be one thing one day, one thing the next day. It's really, really hard to run a business and plan anything that way. Here's the other problem about entrepreneurs. And I've tried to address this. Kaufman's tried to address this. You're all running your own businesses. You don't have time to go advocate for yourselves. You don't have time to show up at your city council meeting, much less call your senator or congressman, much less get a lobbying group together and go to Washington and say, entrepreneurs important. My small business is super important. And yet you hear the politicians say all the time, was it John Oliver did a thing about small business is the backbone of the American economy, and he just repeats it over and over again with every politician who's ever said it. Google it, you'll laugh your butt off, it's great. But this is the problem, it's like we don't organize as entrepreneurs. And there are organizations that do this, like NFIB, anybody heard of them? National Federation of Independent Businesses? Yeah, are any of y'all members? No, probably not. The Chamber, and I don't mean to diss on chambers, even though I do that pretty regularly. The chamber is great for like connecting businesses, and they're great for policies, but most chambers run on the big checks by the big companies. A lot of you are members, and I'm not saying don't be a member of the chamber. That's great. Like, do your thing, but they're not relying on your check to do the work. So who are they going to listen to when everybody calls and says, hey, I got an issue in Washington? They're going to listen to the biggest employers in town, your BMWs, your Lockheed Martins, your whoever it is, right? There are some organizations that are working on this, and I'll mention two that I'm affiliated with. One is called Right to Start. And if you don't know about them, they are basically saying, like, we need to do everything we can in our power to help more companies get started, to break down these barriers for entrepreneurs across the country. And they're doing work at the local, state, and a little bit at the federal level. They're launching an initiative next year called America the Entrepreneurial, like America the Beautiful. But it's to celebrate the entrepreneurial culture of our country, that going all the way back to Alexis de Tocqueville and Benjamin Franklin, all of these, the founding fathers that all were entrepreneurs. They are going to celebrate that in accordance with America's 250th birthday, which happens next year. Mark your calendars. The next group I would mention is a guy named John, the Center for American Lobbyists in Washington. And you want to talk about complex federal policies that he's working on? Man, none of us can understand it, but John does. He had a career in the financial services industry, had a front row seat to the 2008 financial crisis and how they put the markets back together. And he got the entrepreneurship bug. And he has gone out and built an organization to help people like you advocate for things that would make your lives better, because you're not waking up every morning thinking about federal tax policy. You're not waking up every morning and think about visa policy so you can hire that next tech coder developer that you need who's an engineer, because you can't find the local talent here. But John Deere does. So check out those two organizations, Right to Start and Center for American Entrepreneurship, and that might be a good place to start. And that's volunteer, plug in, make a donation, offer to speak, all of them have very valuable. Yes, do it.
Just a fun fact for everyone. The 1 Million Cups logo is kind of iconic for entrepreneurs. It's kind of golden arches. People see it everywhere.
It's so
Fun fact: how did it come about?
I'd like to say that we hired this fancy marketing firm out of New York, and it took months, and there's dudes with Mad Men suits, all right, let's figure this out. That was not the case at all. I don't even remember where we found it, but we did like a website like Fiverr or something, and we found this graphic designer, and the guy sent us a couple of different options, and I think this was like one of the first ones we looked at, and it was just like, that is genius. It's cups, it's a million, it's all in the logo. Like, that is fascinating. And where did the orange come from? I don't know. That's just like how it started, and it was cool. Where did the gray t-shirts come from? I don't know. I have plenty of gray t-shirts. We had a version that was kind of like a more brown, like mocha toned. We need to get those back, Kenzie. That's all I'm going to say on that. Yeah, so we'll maybe tweak the t-shirts, because it's all about coffee or tea. And but I think also too, like, that came from this idea that it was just about connecting over cups of coffee, right? And to put that in the logo, it tells you what you're doing without telling you what you're doing. So anyway.
All right, well, we are just about to sing happy birthday to 1 Million Cups and have a fun Fetty cake that I ordered with banana pudding cream layers. I was like, let's go. Let's do the most craziest birthday party cake ever. But can you move it? Okay. There we go. So again, big shout out to all of our volunteers. It's just really amazing. We had the pleasure of having dinner together last night, where Kenzie took us all out for dinner. And it was so fun to just sit and talk. And, we're so busy doing this, it's nice to get to know each other a little bit more. So we all give a round of applause for all of them. ERC broadband, they're bringing us the fastest Wi-Fi in the nation. Now this works. Patch Co-working, Dynamite Coffee Roasting Company, Baird, the Berkshire Garside Group, and Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses, and also Brit & Co. for all of their talents that they lend with all of our media. We really appreciate it. We can move past this. Coming up next week, We have Amy Patel with the gallery box. She competed in Hatch this year. We're really excited to hear about her presentation. On the 3rd, which is Wednesday, I'm still confused. I'm like, is it August? Are we still in the 20s? Wait a minute. AI for entrepreneurs at One World West. Learn how Asheville startups are leveraging AI. All of the AI meetups are so powerful right now. So it's a great. We have so many great resources to try and plug into those. On the 4th, understanding the ABL economy. How is Asheville really doing? With all this, we're moving up on our anniversary of the hurricane, and we all have time to reflect. I mean, there's times when I catch myself in the gut, tearing, and there's times where I'm like, look at us and look at how far we've come. So let's celebrate that. I don't know if I really want to know how the economy is doing, but I have hope. And if we can get Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce to get married at the Biltmore, like. All right, the power of connecting. Rooftop celebration is also tomorrow. And where is that? At Visuals? Oh, that's at Very Beer. Okay, good. Go All In on Your Calling is happening at Pollen on the 5th. And Earth Bay launch party is happening at the Mule to close out Asheville Entrepreneurship Week. Yeah. On Saturday, DJ Camaro giveaways and a heated apparel launch. All right, if you can all join me here up on the stage to crowd around Cameron, we're going to do a group photo, and then we're all going to sing Happy Birthday to 1 Million Cups. And have our cake and eat it too.
Great question, friends. Do we have to go?
We also did the cake, didn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Come on. You're right in there.
Here, what's this? There we go.
Alright, it's gonna be a 10-second timer coming up in there and a bunch of donuts.
10 second timer. Oh, no.
And then maybe that's when we sing Happy Birthday.
Well, then I'm gonna video that part.
Okay. There she comes. Alright, throughout the kids, make it on the cake. Alright, ready?
You all ready for happy birthday?
Okay.
And the 1, and the 2, and the 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear. Happy birthday to you.
Alright, one more favor without the cake. We'll take the cake off. I just want you to say this exactly correctly at the same time. Welcome to 1 Million Cups. Okay? This is going to be used in a video at top level.
Wow.
Okay? No pressure. No pressure, guys. Alright. On the count of 3. 1, and then say after 3. 1, 2, 3.
Welcome to 1 Million Cups.
Thank you.
Because so far, I'm April. This is yeah. I'm probably talking about April. Yes, yes, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. Right with that. On the 24th. I'm gonna be looking for someone to space. Possible, the whole point is supposed to be a space for wellness providers and all of our Asheville. And so that's the point. So to have someone talk through, because it's to like create space and make some direction and to ground us for the presentation. Yes, this is the point. And yeah, and maybe somebody else to close it out. I don't know. But in your networks, I didn't think on it. Yeah, exactly. So you know, Wednesday, I can take you guys on a tour. That's what I mean. As in the practitioners. The practitioners. Yes. Yes. There we go. And then she was like,